We hear talk of a global elite ushering in a new world order. This is where conspiracies intertwine with reality, where the lines between control and chaos blur. In this realm, the collapse of systems is not a failure but a strategy to usher in that new world order. But what, if any, evidence is there that such a network exists? Time to shine a light on things visible and invisible. Allan Paul Roberts is an author committed to explaining the turbulent times in which we live in terms of the big picture. But that big picture involves globalist forces quietly working to take over the world while all the time hidden in plain sight. He is the author of The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order, and he joins me down the line from his home in Pennsylvania. Allan, welcome to Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you, Sean. So great to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now, so glad to be here.
Well, I'm very glad that you're here because I need a little bit of an explanation, Allan. When I was growing up, which was a long time ago, nobody talked about the New World Order, whereas today, everybody seems to be talking about the New World Order. Give me a short history, if you like, of how we've come to that situation. Where did this idea of a New World Order come from?
Well, that can be a Pandora's box to go into. It depends how far back you really want to go. I mean, there are people who claim that it goes back centuries with, the so-called illuminati and other, we'll call them dark forces for lack of a better way to explain it. In my book, I don't try to go back that far, although that might be book number 2. But I focus more on the last few decades. And if you think about, in particular, the time period after World War II, there was a major shift in world power where we came into things like what eventually became the United Nations, the series of events leading up to the United Nations, and this kind of world government type of effort that supposedly was to prevent wars from happening, to prevent nations from fighting against nations. But in reality it has a longer term plan to unite nations in such a way that everything is organized under a one world government with a single world ruler. And you end up with nation states pretty much in name only, but all power is controlled from the top. And a lot of the wars that have been fought have really been with that goal in mind of weakening nations, weakening borders, weakening basically the sense of independent countries that really do operate on our own. Everything gets rolled up into a higher system, whether it's the European Union and everybody's on the same currency, and even though you have nation states, you see where they can overturn an election in Romania and say, sorry, that person was elected, but they're not going to rule. Where individual nations just get overruled at the policy level. That's a small foreshadowing of what they want to do on a global scale. But you look at things like the World Economic Forum, for example. It's basically the union of government and big business to form a new type of ism that is similar to communism, but not quite there, not quite the same. It's almost like a new form where you have this united power of supposedly independent companies working in harmony with the government to accomplish the end goal of creating that one world government, one world system, one way of doing everything, one protocol for handling pandemics, one authority to declare a pandemic, for example, and to force what the protocol is to handle that pandemic. That's just as one example. And we saw a little bit of a hint of that pretty strong hint actually during the COVID crisis, where all governments were pretty much handling it the same way. All governments were pretty much forcing the shot or creating a lot of pressure to take the shot, or you lose your job, or you lose your medical license to practice, things like that. So we lived through a pretty heavy-handed time, but what was really interesting about that time is how consistent it was from nation to nation, right down to the incentives, financial incentives in hospitals and by doctors to declare that someone had COVID, and the financial rewards they received were very similar across the Western nations. So yeah, it was very centrally controlled, but that's kind of the big picture. I realize I didn't go back and give you a long history because that really wasn't my focus in what I did here with the book, but hopefully we can go from there.
But in that instance, Allan, because I mean it's interesting what you're saying about sort of governments sort of learning from each other or replicating each other, depending on your point of view. But wasn't it always the case? I mean, this is, I suppose, the hub of one of the issues around the New World Order, that there's always been a kind of geopolitical sort of polity that has made decisions, decided upon things. We're probably both old enough to know when the world was divided into two masses. There was the free world and the communist world, and they were sort of their own little worlds in a sense. What you're talking about in your book, what you're talking about here tonight, is something a little bit different, I think. It's a little bit more joined up in a sense, or am I reading it wrong?
It is. It's a lot more joined up. And one of the really interesting, I would call it almost a proof of that, is Event 201, which if you look that up, that was pretty much a dress rehearsal among nations, or among, let's say, powerful aspects of world power members, certain members. It was basically a dress rehearsal for the COVID pandemic, what the reactions were going to be, what the media was going to say, anticipating the pushback from the public. That video, which you can find if you look up Event 201, was basically created by the World Economic Forum, and it was created in 2019 prior to the pandemic. And it was, if you look at it, you would say it was prophetic. How could they be that spot on? Well, they couldn't be that spot on. It's just they knew what was coming and they were planning for it. And that Event 201 actually has commercials, or I would say not commercials. It has television news anchors as talking to you as if they are live broadcasting on the pandemic and on what's going on in that Event 201 rehearsal. And in my book, The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything, it's filled with QR codes where you can link right to videos, and you can link right to Event 201, or you could just look it up now, your viewers. But it's chilling how precise that really was. And to me, that's one of many, many proofs that this is a truly coordinated effort.
Yes. I suppose, though, again, playing the devil's advocate a little bit, Allan, there's always been sort of dress rehearsals. I mean, you will remember in the 1950s, there's those very famous films of ducking under tables in the event of a nuclear attack and all the rest of it. Would you say that this is, what governments might suggest is that this is simply planning for these events, that it's a major event that they hope never happens, but they're sort of planning for it in the same way that the military plan for invasion or do military maneuvers or that sort of thing. But you don't see it as innocent as that. You see it as something much more sinister in a sense.
Yes, I do, and you really have to connect a lot of dots to finally come to that conclusion, and that is what the book is all about. But the uncanny precision of that particular one, Event 201, that would be like saying pick some small town in some rural place in the whole United States, and in your Event 201 example, let's say you pinpointed that town and it all happened just like that in that town. Well, that's kind of like the level of detail that we're talking about, this mirroring. So it goes beyond coincidence when it has that type of precision, in my opinion.
Now, in your book, you're very clear about why this New World Order is happening. It has particular targets, and you go into those in some detail. Do you want to just take us through a sort of a quick summary of what it is that this New World Order is trying to undermine or trying to demolish, trying to replace?
Sure. So in my book, I break it down into 11 pillars of society that are under attack and in some state of collapse. They're being worked on. So these are the 11, probably from most obvious to least obvious. The first is national borders, security and police protection, privacy, banking and finance, education, energy, environment, medical system, food supply, self-identity, and faith. And 9 out of those 11 are what you might consider to be systems. The last 2 basically relate to the person's self-identity, internal faith, their mental and spiritual resilience. But these 11 things are needed to support a complex and free society. You could drop some of these 11 and still have a complex totalitarian society. But without all 11 of these, you won't have a free, complex society, and these are the things that are under attack.
I mean, that's quite an extensive list, Allan. I mean, okay, let's look at how this plays out, because there isn't a sort of dark globalist elite sitting in Antarctica working this out. This is worked out through, according to your book anyway, through government agencies, NGOs, etc. What's the kind of glue that puts it all together? Do you know what I mean? What's the kind of, because they're quite a diverse group, some of these, with different interests that you've identified in your book. What is the thing that's really driving them or holding them together or making it a kind of more holistic view of what they're trying to do?
Yeah, so I guess it depends how big you want to go. In the, I'll call it the 30,000 foot view, based on my research, it's my belief that many of these people at the very top actually practice a Luciferian religion. Which then gives them the, let's say, the freedom to operate outside of the norms of society, outside of the Judeo-Christian ethic that drives Western society or has driven Western society. So at one level, they're serving their master, which is Satan, who is diametrically opposed to God and God's children and everything that God stands for, which is freedom, which is goodness, which is kindness, and it's not greed, it's not power. But Satan, on the other hand, as Jesus said, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so people who truly follow him, I mean, our genuine Satan worshipers have no problem with that agenda: steal, kill, and destroy, have power over other people. I heard one person describe it this way: God sees each person as a cherished son and daughter who he wants to be a member of his family. Satan sees each person as prey. He sees you as a trophy to be dominated and ruled. And so the people who truly believe in this at the highest level, that's how they see us. And that's very hard to wrap your mind around. And it's not something anyone would accept without reading and getting some proof. But what holds it together then is this philosophy for world domination. And they have done a great job of knowing how to concentrate power and to look at the control points of banking, of government, of non-government organizations, of the United Nations and that whole power structure that drives that, of the top corporations in the world, which they own both sides of all the major competitors, Coke and Pepsi, Airbus and Boeing, Microsoft and Apple. You roll this all up, and you find out that the same companies have controlling interest in basically every corporation that matters. So with that power, combined with the banking power, combined with the structure of the UN and other things like that, these organizations, they have a tremendous amount of control. But the good news is, if we can spread awareness of that, then the pushback happens. And we're starting to see that in, to different levels of degree. You see it in big ways, let's say, with Donald Trump and the whole pushback against, pulling out of the World Health Organization, pulling out of organizations that are trying to have control over the United States as a sovereign nation. So you see things like that at that level, but just the general awareness in the public about the New World Order, about the attempt to control us, especially with the wake-up call that we had in COVID, is becoming apparent. We're reaching a tipping point. And my hope is that the book can help accelerate that tipping point. But through many, many avenues, we're coming to that place.
Very, very interesting. Unfortunately, Allan, the time has whizzed by and we've only really scratched the surface, but inevitably that's the case in such a complex subject as this. For now, tell people where they can find out more about you, your work, and also pick up a copy of your book.
Sure. So I have an author website, authораproberts.com. But the really good website to go to for the book is globalcollapsebook.com. And there's other video interviews there. There's different ways to get the book. There's a link to Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can also get a signed copy for the same price as an Amazon price as long as you live in the U.S. We'll ship you a signed copy for the same price. You can even get them in sets if you want to help spread the word. That's what this whole effort's about, getting the word out there.
Allan, for now, thank you so much for coming on Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Things Visible and Invisible. We're dedicated to uncovering phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, from ancient enigmas and paranormal encounters to scientific anomalies and forgotten histories. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious and unexplained, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to stay updated on future explorations. Have a personal experience or story that aligns with our investigations? We'd love to hear from you. Visit our website at tvi.show and reach out through our contact form. While we can't feature every submission, we review them all, and your story might be featured in an upcoming episode. To support our continued investigations, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter or channel member. Your contributions make these explorations possible and give you access to exclusive content, early releases, and monthly behind-the-scenes discussions with our team. Don't forget to check out our merch store. We've got everything from TVI-branded t-shirts and hoodies to stickers and coffee mugs, perfect for showing your support while keeping the mysteries close. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time as we continue to explore the things visible and invisible.